I want to thank everybody for coming this evening. And I'm worried. I'm concerned. I'm a mom. I'm a grandmother. I'm a daughter. I'm a wife. And I'm concerned about people's health care. And I'm concerned about their access to their health care. And this Highmark UPMC war, divorce, it's got a lot of people concerned, and of course they should be concerned. And so I'm hoping tonight that we'll answer some of your questions, because knowledge is power. If you know what you have and what you can't do and where you go, and then you can, you'll know how better to navigate the system. So that was my hope, that tonight will help you on this journey and help you be able to navigate how we move forward from this point. Now, I am Allegheny County Councilwoman Sue Means, and I come on in, take a seat. I represent Bethel Park, Upper St. Clair, Mount Lebanon, and Bridgeville. This is my 6th year to serve. My background is in nursing, and it gives me another reason to care and to be concerned. So, the Highmark UPMC divorce is, as I mentioned, very stressful for everyone. I wanted to give like a really brief history of how we got here. You might even think it's too brief, but I'm going to have my staff member, Jared Barker, pass out for you the history and the other document as well. And I forgot to mention that we're really blessed tonight. We have Dr. Alan Yeasted joining us from St. Clair Hospital, and I'll give him a better introduction later. But he's going to be able to answer questions, and at the end of my presentation and Dr. Yeasted, and we also have another gentleman on his way, we'll do question and answers. So basically, the short version is, long ago, hospitals were charitable organizations, institutions, and we didn't have insurance. People paid out of pocket, but as technology progressed and the cost of healthcare increased, and people began to purchase insurance. And then UPMC is a hospital. It decided to become an insurance provider. And then Highmark, those are the two major, which you're well aware of, insurance providers in Western Pennsylvania. UPMC purchased a hospital and went into the hospital business, and then Highmark, which was an insurance business, purchased a hospital, and then, competition started, and then conflict has started. So it's been back and forth. We can be upset. We can call our state representative. There's a handout in the back. We can ask the state legislature to change things. It's upsetting because I believe hospitals, they're charitable institutions, but in times they're really acting like a for-profit institution. So we're in uncharted legal grounds. Really, I agreed with Joshua Shapiro's attempt to take them to court to challenge their their charitable status. It's all pretty technical, and there's a lot of explanations in the handouts. But I really want today to be a time to say, we're here now. How do we move forward? We have to move forward with what's on the table, and so that is why I have invited Dr. Alan Yeasted to come from St. Clair Hospital. We, as county council members, we tried to get Highmark and UPMC to come and address the citizens, but because they're in a legal battle, we couldn't get them to come. And then a few weeks ago, it occurred to me to reach out to St. Clair Hospital, who's independent. And also I found, let me just read. Well, when Bill McKinley comes, I'll introduce him, but he is a professional consultant who helps people navigate the healthcare system. And now I'm going to introduce Dr. Alan Yeasted. His bio is a page long, but I'm only going to read half a page if that's okay with you, Dr. Yeasted. Dr. Alan Yeasted served as the Chief Medical Officer at St. Clair Hospital for 18 years. Dr. Yeasted played a central role in leading the hospital through an unprecedented growth and achievement during his tenure. His singular commitment to public safety, performance excellence, and medical education and patient care has set him apart as one of the country's top physician executives. Dr. Yeasted's term as CMO, he continued to maintain his primary practice at St. Clair and was even known to make an occasional house call. That's to be commended, a house call, taking great pride in his 40 years of uninterrupted service to his patients and students. He continues to see patients in his primary care practice and works closely with St. Clair Foundation on fundraising and community relations and special projects. He is the recent past governor of the Western Pennsylvania chapter of the American College of Physicians and has held many roles at the Allegheny County Medical Society, including serving as the 2004 president, chairman of the board, delegate to the Pennsylvania Medical Society. So, everyone, please welcome Dr. Yeasted.
Thanks, Sue. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
So I'm going to take the opportunity. I know we're here tonight to talk about the insurance issues, but I want to take a moment, if it's okay with all of you, to tell you a little bit about St. Clair Hospital, of which you can imagine I'm fairly well aware after 40 years of being on the medical staff there, because I think it enters into our discussion tonight simply because of the things that St. Clair can offer in the way of patient service that you may have difficulty achieving because of your insurance. Let me start by saying that St. Clair accepts all major insurances. So all major insurers in the country, UPMC, Highmark, Aetna, Cigna, and United, and Humana, I guess now, which is starting to get into this area. We accept all of those insurances. So it makes it pretty easy for all the patients in the South Hills not to have to worry about whether they have this insurance or that insurance if they come to St. Clair. St. Clair is, as Sue said, is an independent hospital. People always ask, not as much recently, but I know over the years that I've been to St. Clair, is UPMC going to take you over? Are you going to join UPMC? And the answer is absolutely not. St. Clair's board of directors, of which I'm a member, and our president, Mr. James Collins, who has been born and raised and lives in the South Hills, everyone is committed to keep St. Clair Hospital independent. That's our goal. We've been able to do it so far. We feel that we can do that into the future. St. Clair's is a 329-bed hospital. It may not mean a lot to people that aren't in this business. We're surprised in Pittsburgh to hear that a hospital our size is in the top 5% of hospitals in the country in size. There are a lot of very, very small hospitals around the United States, but we're so used to seeing UPMCs and Highmarks and Jefferson and Washington Hospital, all of which are over 250 beds. The 329-bed hospital is actually a fairly large hospital as the nation goes. We're full service, advanced surgical. I will talk about that in a minute. We still have an OB program. In fact, we have a growing obstetrics program. Not exactly what a lot of hospitals keep open, as you know, if you've followed the area. When a hospital just gets sold to UPMC or to Highmark, usually they close the OB program and try to consolidate it either at McGee or West Penn. St. Clair's board feels that that's important to our community. And we're the third largest OB provider in Western Pennsylvania, actually, behind McGee and West Penn. We are the largest OB provider, believe it or not, for McKees Rocks. We have two doctors out there that are in that area, and we provide more OB coverage for McKees Rocks, which you wouldn't think about when our hospital's in Mount Lebanon. We have a psychiatric unit which stays, unfortunately, very full. We have a 26-bed psych unit, and that's another part of hospital care that a lot of people get out of because it's not cost-effective to stay in that. That's just one of the things that our board feels very important to this community, that we maintain a very high-quality psychiatric unit, which we are continuing to do. St. Clair has really great nursing care. If any of you have had the opportunity, I call it an opportunity, I hate to say it that way, to be in St. Clair Hospital. I have personally in the past year. I had hip replaced, but the nursing care is absolutely phenomenal. Our nurses are what makes St. Clair Hospital as great as it is. It's not the physicians. We have good doctors, it's true. We have good administrators, we have a good board. But when you go to the hospital, it's the nurses that make the difference. Thank you.
Oh, my daughter works at St. Clair Hospital too.
But really, it is the nursing care that makes a difference. And our nurses were actually 5th in the nation. Out of 5,000 hospitals, we were 5th in the country in what they call nurse responsiveness. You press your button, you need a nurse. Within a minute, those nurses are in your room to ask you what you need. So we were very fortunate to have those nurses. We have something else that's very unique for a hospital our size, meaning a community hospital, an advanced community hospital. We have 24/7 coverage on our intensive care unit by board-certified intensivists. Very important to have that because, again, you can go to a university hospital, you'll generally have fellows or residents at night and the attendings go home. We have people that are board certified in their field in our hospital 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, covering the ICU. I work at UPMC, quite honestly, I'm still my staff privilege as a Presby. I would take our ICU, except for some really high-end things that we can't do, take our ICU as far as coverage any day over a university, and I've worked in both. We have advanced surgical programs. I'm sure all of you have seen our new cardiac surgeon. His picture was all over the tri-state area, but we finally got to take those down. But anyway, he's superb. He came from East Carolina University. He was the chairman of the cardiothoracic program. He can do a lot of things that we've never done at St. Clair. And quite honestly, some things that are only done at major universities and some not even in Pittsburgh. Just recently, we had 2 patients from Oklahoma that came to have surgery by him because they heard about what he could do. So we're really very fortunate at St. Clair. We have really good vascular surgery. We have extremely good colorectal surgery and urology. But the one I want to emphasize today for all of you here, because this is extremely important, is cancer, oncology, as we call it in healthcare. Our oncology program is affiliated with UPMC only in that the physicians that are there are UPMC physicians, but we accept all insurances. So when the problem with Hillman came up and you can't go here, or you can't be admitted here, we don't have that problem at St. Clair. The physicians, you can have Highmark insurance, you can have UPMC insurance, Aetna. We have an affiliation with Hillman because they work for the same parent organization, but we made an arrangement with UPMC within the past 6 months, knowing that this split was going to occur. We made an arrangement with them so that patients of any insurance could be seen at our oncology center. Medical and radiation therapy. As you know, we have multiple access points. We have an outpatient center in Bethel Park at Village Square that's extremely busy. We built one, let's see now, maybe about 6 years ago at Peters Township, right on 19. And if any of you have been over near St. Clair recently, you'll see a very, very, very large hole in the ground that will start filling in by the end of this summer and early fall. And we're going to build an outpatient center that, again, all insurances can come there. It's going to be a beautiful center. You'll be able to pull up, have outpatient surgery there, all your radiology procedures. You will not have to traipse through the hospital anymore, as we do now, to get an outpatient test and park in the garage and make your way through all these hallways just to get an echocardiogram or, you know, a blood test. It'll all be done as an outpatient center, so it's going to be really nice. The last thing I'll tell you is that we're very proud at St. Clair. We've been a 5-time winner at the 100 top hospitals, and now that is the new ad campaign you see on the billboards. This is my hospital. There is no other hospital in Western Pennsylvania that's had 5 times been a winner of the 100 top hospitals. We have a Leapfrog A rating. Leapfrog is an organization that the business community put together. GE, Boeing, many years ago, a lot of these major companies across the United States decided that they were tired paying for health care that wasn't good quality, so they established guidelines that you had to meet to get an A, B, C, D, or E, and actually even an F rating. And so St. Clair's, again, the only hospital that's had an A rating for the past more than 6 years. We get it twice a year. They come out twice a year. We just got our A rating again this spring. It'll come out again in the fall. So we're very proud of that. That's based on your quality and your cost, and if you're a cost-effective hospital and still delivers good quality. And finally, we're the only hospital in this Western Pennsylvania area that has a 5-star CMS rating. So CMS is the Center for Medicaid and Medicare Services. It's the federal government, technically. And again, they pay a lot of the healthcare dollars, as you all know. For all of us in this room, I guess, technically looking around, most of us are probably in Medicare age. And Medicare said, again, one day, why are we paying all this money if we can't determine what a good hospital is? So they set up all sorts of criteria. You don't apply for these things. They just rate you on the scores that on what you send into them, on how long your patient's in the hospital, how many complications you have from surgery, any drug complications, anything at all like that. They're watching all these things, how long someone's in the hospital, whether they come back to the hospital in a few days after they're discharged. All those factors are taken into consideration. Then Medicare gives you a STARS rating. And we were always a 4, but now we've gotten up to a 5. And we're the only one in this area that's had a 5-star. So again, sounds like I'm very proud of working there. I am. At St. Clair Hospital has done a phenomenal job. We're here to talk about insurance needs. Let me close for your questions, just to emphasize again that we accept all major insurances. There are times that you have to be transferred from St. Clair. Sue and I were talking on the phone the other day about a patient comes to your emergency room, has, quote, the wrong insurance, and has to be transferred out again after they're stabilized. There are patients we transfer out. We don't do trauma. So if someone's in an auto accident and they stop at St. Clair because we're the closest and the person's having trouble with their blood pressure, getting stabilized, we'll stabilize those patients, but we'll still transfer them out regardless of what insurance they have. It's the medical part. And the other other people we transfer out of St. Clair, in case you've heard of someone coming in and being transferred, and quite honestly, I do see all the transfers on my email. I get one every time we transfer out. Head bleeds. If someone bleeds inside their head, if they fall, an older person falls, hits their head, and there's blood inside their skull, we transfer those patients out because we don't have neurosurgeons at St. Clair who will do head trauma. That head trauma has to be transferred out of St. Clair. But other than that, we can do practically anything at St. Clair that any university can do, and I'll tell you honestly, because of our scores, sometimes much better. So I'll stop there, and we'll answer any questions you may have.
Well, just before we start the questions, I called a paramedic, one of our servers in the area and asked questions because I thought, well, this is going to come up. That's you. Let's say you're in an accident, you're in bad shape. The AMS comes and they take you to a hospital, and it's a UPMC hospital, and you have Highmark. Well, then they're going to stabilize you and move you. So wouldn't you, if you have a choice, if you're conscious and you have a choice, they do ask you what your preference is. They do ask you what your healthcare provider is. But as Dr. Yeast had mentioned, maybe you didn't mention, but Mercy Hospital is UPMC and HEH is Highmark, and those are both trauma centers. So if you're in a really major accident, you're going to head to either one of those facilities. Is that correct? That's correct. That's correct.
If you have the opportunity and you know what insurance you have, I would advise you go to that facility. It's just going to be easy to be transferred again. But again, you have to go in trauma to where you're stable. You can't, they are not even allowed to pass up St. Clair, although we're not a trauma center, if they feel a person is unstable. They have to stop, get you stabilized, make sure your blood pressure is okay, and then we transfer you. And we light flight, as you know, the helicopter has a landing spot at St. Clair. We can helicopter people out if necessary. Oftentimes we take probably, I would say honestly, probably more little babies out when they're born if there's a problem with respiratory. We do not have what's called a level 3 NICU, which is the neonatal intensive care unit. We don't have that certification, so if it's a baby that's going to have to be in a NICU and be intubated and have a machine breathe for them, that gets transferred out, and that's what our helicopter often takes out. So.
Well, I don't know where our other speaker is.
Where's he at?
Push what back? Oh, now it's too close?
Who's your speaker? So,
I guess I have to go away.
He's an insurance broker.
he's an insurance broker.
Yes, and he's very knowledgeable about helping people navigate the system. And Bill McKendry was in Titusville today giving the same talk, answering the same questions, because Erie is going through the same divorce with UPMC and Highmark, and tomorrow he's giving another talk. So I might step out a minute.
No, he's down. He's here.
Pardon me?
You're
He's
here.
here.
You're him? Oh,
I thought when you came in,
oh
you
my
might
goodness, Bill. Why didn't you say something? Oh, I'm so happy.
You guys are happy.
So I was relieved. So let me take a minute and introduce Bill. Sorry, never met. I'm just really, you came in the same room as somebody else and I just assumed you were a couple, so I apologize. So I'm so glad you're here. And I want to say again how really grateful I am to Dr. Easton and William McHenry for being here, because like I mentioned before, we couldn't get UPMC and Highmark to come and answer questions. So let me read your bio, Bill. Mr. McHenry teaches courses on health law and healthcare policy at the University of Pittsburgh School of Law and the School of Pharmacy. Prior to that, Mr. McHenry was the director of Western Pennsylvania Center for Aging Services and was a member of the Pittsburgh law firm of Gabriel and Associates. Mr. McHenry has a JD degree from Duquesne University School of Law and a master's in public administration from the University of Pittsburgh. So let's give a welcoming hand for Mr. McHenry.
Just checking. Is my mic on? You can hear me okay? Good. All right. Well, I'm actually not an insurance broker. I'm an attorney. I'm a professor at the University of Pitt School of Law and School of Pharmacy. And although I'm not doing it right now, which gives me the opportunity to talk as freely as I want to, I'm also the director of a program that serves in every county in Pennsylvania individuals who have questions, issues, problems about their Medicare, their Medicaid, their private insurance, their benefits. We serve about 30,000 people a year. Because it would be a conflict of interest if this were 9 to 5 and if I mentioned their name. So since it's after 5 and since I won't mention their name, I don't have to worry about somebody saying, you can't say that. So for tonight, I'm just Citizen Bill, Attorney Bill, Professor Bill, and we'll just kind of leave it at that. So let me pose a question to you guys, just so I have a sense of who you guys are. How many of you are already in Medicare or eligible to be in Medicare? Okay. How many of you, keep your hands up, how many of you are actually in Medicare right now? Okay. As in, you're eligible to be in Medicare, but you've chosen to postpone this for a down the road time. Have I got that right? I could join Medicare, I just choose not to because I'm covered by an employer benefit or something. You look like you have deer in the headlights look. Okay, all right. So, here's the thing. We have the ability right now, each of you guys that hasn't entered Medicare yet, each of you guys that have postponed, I'm not talking about, I picked up the Part A cost. I'm talking about putting both feet in the bear trap, picking all the products. Most of you here are eligible, but you haven't yet. You have the ability, the power, to make all of this irrelevant. When you enter Medicare, and the end of the consent decree is really mostly, essentially going to impact people in Medicare. It's been postponed for 5 years for the purpose of allowing people that are in Medicare or about to enter Medicare within that period to get used to the fact that Highmark and UPMC are going their separate ways, and this extended consent decree was to allow those individuals to get ready for it. It amazes me that given a 5-year warning, as we approach the less than 1 year signpost, people were going crazy with, oh gosh, somebody's got to do something. We had 5 years to do something, and we chose to just wait and wait and wait. Well, it's still not too late. For you guys who have not yet entered Medicare completely, entirely, and by that I mean picked up the Part B portion of Medicare, here's what you can do. And this is irrelevant then. All of this is irrelevant. When you enroll finally, completely, entirely in Medicare, the Part A, which some of you may have, the Part B, which likely none of you guys have, when you finally have those two components together, rather than going out and purchasing an HMO product or a PPO product from any company that's selling and wondering, wow, I wonder if this year, next year, 5 years, some years down the road, I'm going to be able to go to the doctors I want and the facilities I want. Oh, I wonder if I have an emergency that I can't explain to the EMT where I want to go, where I should go. Well, they put me in the wrong place, and once they stabilize me, oh, they've got to move me somewhere else because they got the wrong insurance. How about this? How about when you enter Medicare and enroll in Part A and Part B, you select something that will let you go anywhere in America or in this neighborhood or in this town, in this community, and they can't turn you away because you have the right kind of coverage. The right kind of coverage is Medicare itself, Part A, Part B. When you go to a doctor or a hospital or a facility, the only question you ask them then is, do you take Medicare? Do you take Medicare?
Absolutely.
I promise you every hospital here, I promise you pretty much any hospital in America you would ever want to go to is going to say, yes, I take Medicare. And I'll bet you any money, every doctor you would contemplate going to is going to say, yes, I take Medicare. I might not like what I get reimbursed by. I may wish I got more. I may wish the system were different, but yes, I take Medicare. And therefore, that's the only question as far as getting into that facility, seeing that doctor, utilizing that practice. Well, wait a minute. Medicare itself, Part A and Part B, only cover, albeit a part of, but not nearly the entire amount. And won't I be stuck with cost sharing? Yes, if you stop just at Medicare Part A and Part B. In addition to your Part A and Part B, you enroll in a supplement to Medicare Part A and Part B. They're called Medigaps. A Medigap is secondary to Medicare A and B, and that means Medicare A and B is your primary coverage. A Medigap, regardless of what company sold it to you, must be accepted by any facility, by any doctor, by any care provider that has agreed to take your Medicare card. If they take a Medicare assignment, guess what? They must take a Medicare supplement. Thus, when you go to a doctor or a hospital and you say, just want to make sure, doc, you take Medicare. Yes. Part A, Part B. Yes. Therefore, here's my Medicare card. That's my primary coverage. Here is my Medigap. And the second characteristic of that Medigap is a good Medigap, a quality Medigap, will cover the entire balance of the cost related to inpatient or outpatient care under the Medicare umbrella. You have essentially perfect coverage, and you don't have to vote for Bernie Sanders to get it. The third characteristic, it goes essentially anywhere. It can be comprehensive, and they can't take it away from you. They can't change the product on you from year to year. They can't downsize it. They can't say, ooh, no more, you're using too much. As long as that company stays in business, and as long as you keep paying your premiums, as long as you want it, you've got that product forevermore after. That's what you can do right now. You don't need Josh Shapiro to do anything for you. You don't need senator or rep or congressman or council person to lift a finger. You have the capability as you enter Medicare to make a difference, to make a choice. Now here's the problem. You get to make that choice essentially one time in your life, 6 months from the time you enroll in Medicare Part B. You can go to any company selling a Medigap and say, I want it. And they have to sell you whatever Medigaps they're selling. They cannot underwrite you. They simply say, this is the price it's going to be at your entry point. They can ask you things like, what zip code are you? What level of Medigap do you want? Smoker, non-smoker for a discount? Married, and is your spouse can also pick up the product for a discount? But basically, they get to ask you your name, how old you are, and which level you want. And that's the end of it. And you have that coverage for as long as you want it. But once those 6 months are up, The only way you'll ever get a shot at a Medigap again is either to go through underwriting, which you may never be able to succeed, or have a change of life event, which you may never have, or if you went into Medicare prior to turning 65 because you were disabled, when you reach 65, you get another bite at the apple. Most of you guys look like you're past 65, so most of you guys look like you had your bite of the apple. When you are thinking about this, if you have already entered Medicare and it's been more than a few months, certainly more than a year, I'm sorry, this is going to be a hard nut to crack. But it doesn't mean you can't. If you are relatively healthy, if your conditions are minimal, and if you want to see what you can get if you go into the market and take a look, you may very well just be able to pick up a Medigap and drop the premise of a HMO or PPO, which has limited aspects and capabilities. But certainly, since most of you guys indicated you have not yet picked up the full Monty of Medicare, you're the perfect room to be talking to about this. You get to choose. You get to take control of this process and say, me, I stand up, I'm going to do this because I want to be able to get what I want, where I want, how I want. I want that kind of capability, and you've got it until it's taken away from you. So far, it hasn't been taken away from you. And you know what else? You need to be aware of that, because this thing is really so good that it tends to erode the capability of Medicare to want to hold on to it. Let me tell you something else. About 30 years ago, Medicare made a big, important decision. Medicare, ironically, wanted to shift individuals to an alternative to relying on Medicare Part A and Part B as their primary coverage. That was the norm. When you reached 65, or when you finally decided to go in, you picked up A, you picked up B, that was your primary coverage, and you perhaps supplemented it, or perhaps you didn't. A few decades ago, Medicare encouraged private insurance companies to sell an alternative to Medicare. The Medicare Advantage product, the HMOs, the PPOs, the Highmark Freedom Blues and Security Blues, the UPMC for life, Medicare products, the Advantras, the Cignas, the whatevers. Now, if you enroll in an HMO or a PPO, a Advantage plan, typically you may find the premiums are cheaper. You may find there's a lot of bells and whistles attached to them. Some dental coverage, some eye care, concierge that'll help you navigate through the system. They'll attach prescription drug coverage to it, your Part D. They'll give you access to a health club. They'll give you all sorts of things. But what they won't give you is unfettered access to the American healthcare system. You're in a network. You have specific doctors and places you go if you're going to maximize the full coverage. Step out of that, with an HMO, you pay the full price, except under certain extreme circumstances. Step out of that network with a PPO, they'll help, but not nearly as much as if you stayed in network. They're compelling you to stay in the network. You're never going to get 100% coverage. In fact, most likely if you're looking at an extremely severe condition, cancer, end-stage renal dialysis, you're going to pay essentially what you would have paid if you just had Medicare Part B covering that. And those things change from year to year. You're never sure what it's going to cover. You're never sure how it's going to cover. But that's okay, because if you are relatively healthy and do not see the need to spend the money on a supplement, which is going to cost at the tippy top end at 65, probably somewhere around $150, $160 a month. If you don't see the need or the intent to purchase that, you can get an HMO or a PPO for as little as, how about $0? It's a real incentive for you to see the value of going over to that side. But once you go over to that side, it's near impossible for you ever to consider going back, because once you pass your 6-month signpost, sorry, no gap is going to take you unless you go through underwriting or can demonstrate a change of life event, which you might very well not. And now you have made a choice, a lifetime choice, for something that you're saying, well, boy, I hope I get to go where I want to go. I hope this facility and this doctor and this care provider take my card this year, next year, down the road year. I hope I don't get a condition that becomes so expensive and extreme that I don't know what I'm going to do. And the reason that the private insurance companies are incentivized to sell the HMOs or PPOs and sell them for essentially less than they would sell a Medigap, and add all these wonderful perks, health club memberships, concierge services. We'll take you in and take you to your doctor's appointment. We'll sing you to bed if that's what it takes, because what the insurance companies get, we're getting you off of Medicare. Remember, you don't get to use now Medicare Part A and Part B. You're exclusively committed to that HMO or PPO. In exchange for that, in exchange for the responsibility of being your provider, they are reimbursed by the federal government, by CMS, to the tune of somewhere in the neighborhood of $1,000+ a month. That's the perk. That's the hook. And nobody's going to tell you that when it comes time to make a choice. So I'm telling you that. So this thing is a symptom of a bigger thing. And that bigger thing is the uncertainty, the lack of control that we have by depending on private enterprise to dictate how we're going to get what we get. And we buy into it. Often we get bought off cheap. For a cheap premium, for a trip to some silver sneakers land, and maybe some additional cherry pie on the side. We buy into it. Instead of saying, no, this program was created 50+ years ago because it was hard for people my age, people that were sick, people that were disabled, to get any private insurance, to sell them any insurance. And when it came time to utilize it, where were they? The majority of people 65 or older back in 1965, people that would have been eligible for Medicare, didn't have insurance. Why? Because they couldn't find an insurance company to sell it to them. And those that had it found it was often impossible to utilize it when they had a catastrophic event. Medicare was created to give a guarantee of access. Albeit the government, but it was the government's responsibility to fill in where private enterprise failed or refused to enter. And within a couple decades, we went back to embracing private insurance as the thing which would deliver, if not a supplement, a replacement for it. We've encouraged that. We brought it on ourselves. We still have the power to do something about it, and we still have, without doing any major revolution in the system of Medicare or the system of our healthcare system, say, look, I'm going to learn how to use this. I'm going to do this. And this is what we do with clients on a regular basis. We don't sell them products. We teach them how to use the system that they have. We send them out saying, look, you're armed with information. Doesn't mean you have to. You may still decide you want an HMO or PPO for whatever reason, but you can't say you didn't know. And you can't say you didn't have power over this, because now you do. I'm done.
Is it okay if you come to the microphone to ask your question, or do you want them?
Pretty loud mouth. I think I was a teacher, so I think you can hear me.
All
It
right.
won't make it onto the recording.
It won't. If you don't, do you want to pass her the microphone? Or can you come up? Because that we're recording it to help other people, and so if you don't
Maybe I don't understand the difference, because what is the difference between a Medigap policy and a PPO or an HMO?
Right, they're both sold by private insurance companies, or they're all sold by private insurance companies. The inherent difference is a HMO or PPO, or collectively called an Advantage Plan, is your primary coverage. It essentially replaces your reliance on Medicare directly, Part A and Part B.
Right.
The Medigap supplements Medicare A and B instead. And the important difference is, it's Medicare A and B as your primary coverage, that allows you to go to any doctor or hospital or care provider in America that agrees to take a Medicare assignment. If you have an HMO or PPO, which replaces that reliance on Medicare, you go to the network providers if you want the insurance to maximize the coverage, and if it's an HMO, to absolutely cover, but for certain emergency situations, that you are now bound to that. Medicare, primary. HMOs or PPOs, primary, essentially. There's the difference. And the supplement is a supplement, a secondary boost to Medicare. And the choice really isn't a Medigap versus an HMO or PPO. The choice is Medicare versus an HMO or PPO, and supplementing that Medicare with a Medigap.
Well, that's the reason I'm here. I happen to be at my doctor's today, who happened to replace this knee, but if I need this one, which is any day now, I can't go to him because he's at a UPMC hospital.
And it's going to be after June 30th.
Right. Well,
When
I
they
can't
can-
get it in the next 12 days.
Yeah, it's like as much as you would like to get the next knee, you might want to wait a little bit.
Right.
Yeah.
So that means we're still in the same quandary that we were when they decided a couple of days ago that this is the way it is. Nothing has changed.
So you are already in Medicare?
Yes.
You have Medicare A and B?
Yes. And we have
And you
Security
have
Blue.
Security Blue. How come? Just curious. What made you decide to pick up Security
Well, we were teachers, and that's what the program was, and it was a HOP program, and they always tell us whenever we go to any of these meetings, do not change, because once you change, you can never go back, and you have really a good plan.
What's your premium for it? Just
How
curious.
much is our premium? 500?
Well, for both of us, it's about 500.
500 for both of us.
Now, I know one of you guys gets a $100 kick because who was the teacher? You were the teacher? Were you the teacher also?
Well, we were both, but I think you had to have 25 years
Ah.
of service, and we fall just a little bit shy of that 20.
For the rest of you guys, just to make the point, as an incentive to stay in the HOP system, HOP is the system that represents school teachers within the public school systems in Pennsylvania. To incentivize you to stay in that and take the products that they offer as a retirement package, for individuals that meet certain criteria, unfortunately you don't, they give the retired school district employee, not the spouse of, $100. Just here you go. Let that help defray the cost. Except you didn't. So you guys are both spending about $500. What if I told you for a lot less you could have a lot more, including going to any doctor or hospital you wanted to? And this is what, again, entities do not tell you when it's essential for you to know this. Somebody at your school district could very well have stood up and said, listen, let me tell you, this is a good product, but let me tell you something else. And yeah, once you leave it, you'll never come back, but don't cry those tears. If you got something a lot better, why would you want to ever come back?
Right.
And let me show you what better looks like. And you decide. And that's inherently the problem. There is a lack of complete transparency of information about how this works until it's too late. And I'll bet you guys have been in your Security Blue for way more than a year, haven't you?
Oh, yes. 25 years.
And now you live...
I was a teacher, but I left public education when we started having our own children, so even though I stayed in education, it was in private education.
It is unfortunate. You're going to have to play by the rules that are being established by what Highmark and UPMC are going to do, and what our current governments are going to acquiesce to. And you can, every year, every October, November, early December, decide to flip to a product. And some of the HMOs and PPOs offered by what we'll call third-party national companies that are coming in because they're the friends of both sides and let you straddle the fence. Oh, but see, you're going to have to leave your HOP system, and oh, you'll never come back. Don't be intimidated by that. If there reaches a point where you say, you know what I really want is access to a place where I can get taken care of, the lack of limitations on my being able to utilize this system and the expectation that I'm not going to be turned away, or at some whim of an entity being told, if I don't come up with the entire cost of whatever that service, I'm going to be turned away anyway. These are the kind of things that just because they're not being done now, just because they clawed it back, doesn't mean down the road when they feel like changing. Down the road when it's expedient to whoever feels like doing it, you're caught in the middle. Now, it is unfortunate.
I'm only one of 100 and some thousand people that are in the same boat.
But for
I'm
those
not-
people who haven't yet joined that 100,000 plus, the message is you have a choice. And in your case, there is always also the opportunity, not as good as, but the chance to say, is there another HMO or PPO product out there that's going to allow me the capacity to have better access? And I can tell you there's an inherent difference between an HMO or a PPO product, just inherent. An HMO literally locks a network in, and stray from the network at all, except for emergency situations, you're going to be looking at paying the full cost of the service. A PPO, Preferred Provider Organization, gives you the opportunity to step out, going out of the network, and they'll pay perhaps 70%, perhaps a bit more, perhaps a bit less, for the services that are recognized out of network, but still within the realm of what that company would pay. They'll treat this out of service as at least a partially covered thing. That was what Highmark was hoping they could leverage when the consent decree indication was it was not going to be renewed, nor would Medicare CMS allow a extended period for re-upping enrollment. And when they said, well, look, we're going to encourage people to utilize our products, especially the PPO products, to still be able to leverage the UPMC facilities, this is when, last October, it was declared by UPMC's network of providers that no, we're not going to allow people to come in with a Highmark product, even a PPO product, with the expectation that we're going to cover the portion that represents the PPO and be reimbursed by Highmark, and we'll charge you for the balance, the 20 or 30%. Now, you're going to pay the entire amount. Well, they took that back for the time being. So you've got to keep your eyes peeled, both of you, to do I want something better? And better could be access to more facilities, the facilities I want. Do I want better coverage? Something that's going to cover more than what this product is doing. And my recommendation is, do not be absolutely tied to that product simply because HOP said, or some representative of your school district said, oh my gosh, you can't leave, you'll never get back. Maybe it isn't worth holding on to that bad for that kind of money. And it's at least worth looking at an alternative when you can look at an alternative October 15th through December 7th. Nothing says you have to hold on to this. And if you can find something inherently better, there's nothing wrong with taking it. And it's worth looking, is my point.
Okay, thank you.
Bill, when this window of opportunity opens in her life, where does she go? I mean, I'm always getting phone calls from people, because I'm a senior citizen, saying, I can help you navigate the system. And I'm not so sure I want to trust this person.
Be skeptical.
Yeah, I'm skeptical. So when this window of opportunity opens up to her, where does she go to look at all her choices?
Well, there's actually two windows. I want to emphasize something. So this may happen in your lifetimes and give you, a crack at getting a Medigap if you want to. Remember I said there's two circumstances that allow you, even past your 6 months, to get a Medigap. One is you just are willing to go through underwriting. And if you say to a company that's selling a Medigap, hey, I'd like you to consider me for your product. They'll ask you some questions up front to see if it's even worth going through the underwriting process. If you are relatively healthy and you pass through the underwriting, you may find that you're getting a product that's not that much more expensive than when you're paying now for what you've got. Or through certain events that happen in your life, like through no fault of your own, your current coverage is taken away from you. Through no fault of your own, your company goes out of business. Well, don't count on Highmark doing that. Through no fault of your own, though, they've discontinued that particular product for the upcoming year. Through no fault of your own, you've moved somewhere that takes you out of that coverage range. Through no fault of your own, the company's been told by CMS, by Medicare, that they can't offer that product for the upcoming year, or even more severely, immediately, because they've done something bad. For any of those reasons, through no fault of your own, you lost your current coverage, whether that be an HMO, a PPO, or a Medigap. You get 63 days to pick another product, and that product can be a Medigap. Now, I can't promise you'll ever have one of these change of life events or critical circumstance where you're deprived of that coverage, but I can tell you if it happens, keep your eyes and ears open. That may be the opportunity, maybe your last opportunity. I'm not suggesting you move down to Mississippi for a few months and come back just so you can get a Medigap, but if you do things which cause your coverage to come to an end, it opens another door. And finally, every October 15th through December 7th, there is an open enrollment season. And that open enrollment season gives you the opportunity to evaluate what you currently have in the form of an HMO or PPO and your prescription drug coverage, your Part D. Evaluate whether it's doing a good job, whether in anticipation of what's going to happen next year, it's going to still do a good job, and decide to jump ship. Now, should you reach out to a broker? I'm not going to beat up on brokers tonight. I'll do that later. But there are entities that are custom made to help you make choices that are not given to a ulterior motive, that are not driven by some for-profit or driven by some we're going to get paid for making you do that decision. There are entities that were created to simply help you make a choice. They're funded by the federal government. They're regulated by the federal government. They're created and operated by the state. Program I'm having in mind, I just kind of know about it. It's called a PRIZE. PRIZE is the name given to Pennsylvania State Health Insurance Assistance Program. The PRIZE program was created about 30 years ago to be an offset to brokers, to be an offset to insurance salesmen, to be an entity that is designed to help people figure out how to navigate through the healthcare system, make choices about their coverage. They're unbiased because they're not getting paid by the insurance companies to sell a product. They could care less what you do ultimately. Simply the altruism of saying, we hope you make a good decision. And the people that do this are not employees. The people that do this are essentially volunteers. The people that do this are retired doctors, retired pharmacists, retired social workers, retired lawyers that say, you know what, we really see the value in doing this. Either it's important inherently, or considering what happened to me when I went through this, and boy, was this a mess, I want to help other people so they don't have to go through that mess. You can reach out to them. You can reach out to them throughout the year, but certainly during enrollment season, and that's going to give you an alternative to make. And there may not be a valid other alternative. You may have your wish list so uniquely centric to what you're going to stick with that the decision may be, it's fine. But at least you're getting a second opinion. At least you're getting a chance to look at it and an opportunity to make a flip.
Well, up until this time, everything worked really well, because even though you paid a lot for your supplemental insurance, you still had the freedom to go to your
how's
hospital.
it working now?
Well, today was the first reality kick.
Yeah.
Whenever I went to McGee Women's Hospital and found out that I can't go there anymore.
How does that make you feel?
Very angry.
Yeah.
I am very angry and disappointed.
You should be.
So I find it interesting, when Mr. McKendry asked us in the beginning about who has Medicare and who doesn't, one of the things that I found in practice is, because I understand what he's talking about very well, of course, on the provider end, but people think they have Medicare, they say they have Medicare, and all they mean is they have Medicare Advantage, okay? And
Right.
and they'll say, because they'll need an MRI or a CT scan, and I'll say, just tell me what your insurance is, because if it's regular Medicare, at least at this point, it's going to change a little bit, but there's a reason. But right now, you can go get that test. As he said, it's I always call it the gold insurance. It's the platinum insurance. I don't have to jump through a lot of hoops talking to some high school graduate, no offense, that has no medical knowledge at all on a telephone, reading a computer screen to see if I can get your MRI or CT scan approved. But they'll say, I have regular Medicare. And I have to say, just let me see your card, okay? They pull out a Security Blue card. They pull out a Freedom Blue card. They pull out a UPMC for Life card. They say, you don't have Medicare. I've got to get permission for this test. And sometimes you get it, and sometimes you don't, which is the problem. And there are medications you can't get sometimes. But I know why people do it, because, I've been practicing for 40-some years, and they look at their choices, and as Bill said, you look at that zero premium with the silver sneakers and all the things they offer you, and you say, why would I ever spend more money? And I have some people that truly are millionaires as patients. Every doctor has some that live in service. They have Security Blue or Freedom Blue or UPMC for Life, and I'm thinking to myself, I don't ever say anything to them, because we take care of people regardless of insurance. It doesn't matter to me. But I think to myself quietly, why would you ever do that? You know what I mean? Because they didn't know.
It's even more insidious. It's even more insidious than that. I talk to a lot of people that say, if I had known there was a thing called a Medigap, I didn't want the cheap product. I wanted something good, and I would have paid the $100, $200, I would have paid $300 to have that kind of quality. But no one told me. When I went to those wine and cheese dingles, that they were talking HMO talk and PPO talk, and the reason is because often many of the brokers that are pushing product aren't even licensed to talk about Medigaps, because that ain't where the money is. The money is pushing the HMOs and PPOs. And if that's where the money is, then that's where the cheese dingles are going. And that's the problem. You don't know what good is. You don't know what your options are. You don't know what you don't know. And you've got such a puny window to make a decision. I guarantee anybody that turns 65 knows what it's like to turn 65. Your mailbox knows what it's like. Your kitchen table knows what it's like. And you haven't the foggiest idea how to make a choice, because you get inundated. You are overwhelmed and you're paralyzed by the process. And nobody's going to say, let me help you. Let me just tell you what you need to know. And you do what you want to do. And that's the shame of it. And again, this is why that organization, which I've just heard about, a prize, was created. So keep that in your back pocket, guys, for maybe down the road. Just a thought.
So, Bill, how do you spell that? APPRISE?
That's what I think it's spread. I'm not sure.
You're not.
Not
Okay,
sure.
all right. And do you? So, if people would just go and Google a prize, that would come up, and they would get a number or two.
Yeah, they could do that.
Yeah,
I'm sure
yeah.
if they look hard,
All right.
they'd find it. I think.
I agree with you. I think that I know when we approached that time to go on Medicare, we didn't know where to go. There was and so we trusted work. I mean, we went to HR, and if work recommended something,
Guess who HR turns to in a pinch? The State Health Insurance Assistance Program, known as a prize in Pennsylvania.
okay, well that could be good, right? If they went
Let's
there.
hope so. Let's hope so.
But are you okay?
Yeah, I'm on a camera, thank you.
Okay.
Thanks,
All
okay.
right.
So first let me say, maybe cancer has aged me 10 years, but I am not at all Medicare eligible. But I do have Highmark insurance. And I just want to say 3 years ago when my primary care found out that I had the cancer, he sent me right away to Hillman because I have a very rare cancer that at the time Allegheny Health Network could not manage, and they still cannot. And if it wasn't for UPMC and Hillman, doctors at Presby and Shadyside, I would probably not be here right now. So you can see why this whole decree has been quite upsetting. And why it's important to everybody here and everybody listening is if tomorrow, heaven forbid, someone you love, your grandchildren, I don't know, get diagnosed with a very rare disease or particularly a very rare cancer, there are many things that Hillman can handle that Allegheny Health Network is not equipped to deal with right now. It's a great system. I have nothing wrong with Allegheny Health Network. They have some fabulous doctors and treatments there. In fact, there's some people with UPMC insurance are going to wish they could go over to the Allegheny Health Network. But with two systems right now, you are probably going to get a good doctor, but not necessarily the very best one. And if today I was diagnosed with this rare cancer, I would be going to Allegheny Health Network. They can't handle my rare cancer. They'd be sending me down to Baltimore, and I'd be traveling once a week to get treatment down there. I am on a clinical trial right now, so I was delighted to find out that Hillman is now going to be back in network. I can now finish my clinical trial, which is great. But I will say, and doctor, you know this, with all illnesses and cancers and anything else, it's a multifaceted approach. It's not one doctor fixes you necessarily. It could be physical therapists, it can be surgeons, it can be a number of things. And because I have been treated with treatments at Presby that Allegheny Health Network still can't handle, one wonders where I'm going to go. Even though I still have my Hillman doctors, I'm still going to potentially be cross-network. So I think that we still need to be working to fight for Pittsburgh to have access to both health networks. We need them both. We're not a big enough city to get two absolutely excellent healthcare systems for all illnesses and diseases. And heaven knows what will come up in everyone's future. So to me, I don't want the fight to be over. I know that they voted on Senate Bill 310 today. I don't know what the outcome was. If we have to look to our senators, clearly local government, with all due respect, Sue, County Council has done really nothing overtly obvious to anyone about this. The mayor was silent until the very end to get Hillman back on board, as has the county executive, has done absolutely nothing to help Pittsburgh have access to both healthcare networks. It is essential. It is the best for Pittsburgh. It's best for patients. It's best for people with rare illnesses. My general oncologist is one of the ones at St. Clair now who's going to be kind of crossing networks. But how do I get some of these other specialty treatments that Allegheny Health Network doesn't provide? So I am just here to say that this fight needs to continue. We can't just stop. It's not, it's young people, it's everyone that needs access to both healthcare networks. And since you are here and so eloquent, I wanted to say, some people said, why don't you just go get UPMC insurance? Well, I have Highmark Commercial through my employer, and so I inquired, why can't I get UPMC insurance? And the answer was, well, you can't because the federal marketplace is closed. So even if I wanted to get UPMC insurance, I could not. And once I found out the cost, even if I could, it would take about a quarter of my income. So there's a lot of us stuck in a really bad position here in the city, in Western Pennsylvania, basically.
In fact, you guys experienced the full brunt of it well before the end of the consent decree. The consent, as I said, was really to try to extend a grace period for individuals that were covered or potentially covered by Medicare. The people that were relying on group coverage or private coverage were seeing this split well before this was happening. And you're absolutely right. At least Medicare gets to move in different directions. They get an enrollment season where they get 40 or 50 different selections. And if they're lucky enough to have thought through this ahead of time, they can take control of it.
Yeah.
Employees don't get that option.
No,
Employees are told by an employer, this is what you get, take it or not.
3 years ago, a doctor would have had to have sent me to Hillman. There was no one else in Pittsburgh that can handle my rare cancer. So even if 3 years ago, maybe someone said to me, oh, we're not going to over cancer, I didn't know what that really meant. No one brought to light 3 years ago that, well, you can only be seen, be treated for 3 years and then you're on your own. I didn't understand that 3 years ago when I was sent to Hillman. But here I am now. So someone was wait till last minute. I have had to stay with Hillman as long as I can for treatments, for clinical trials that Allegheny Health Network does not offer. So there's many of us in that situation. And when you sit in these treatment rooms and you understand I'm not the only one that needs Hillman and access to some of the UPMC specialty care. The new eye center that's going in up at Mercy, for instance, right? It is supposedly going to be an outstanding eye center to exceed anything else in the city of Pittsburgh. But if you have Highmark, you can't go there. You're going to have to settle for something else.
We should find it inherently obscene that we, although not a huge city, but still a city that is incredibly enriched with a world-class health system. And I don't mean UPMC, I mean all of the systems that exist in the greater Pittsburgh area.
Great in the city.
The ability to access the cutting edge of healthcare and be told, no, you can't have it because you don't have the right insurance because your employer didn't swing with the right company. Or you can have this, but you can't have that. You can go here, but you can't go there. This is not the norm by which we should be thinking and scrambling to say, oh, please God, we hope a politician hears our cry and does something about it. We hope that the court sees it our way. It should go beyond that. It should simply be a fundamental expectation of every American, whether they're in Medicare or in a private insurance or in a group plan, that they can have access to the healthcare system of America and not of that.
Yeah, and I have to say, it's not just patients. The doctors, the financial counselors, everyone is confused, frustrated. My Hillman doctors, is it ethical to continue with the clinical trial if the decree is evident? And you know, doctor, for primary cares now, they have to ask before they recommend a specialist, which network are you in? So now they have to know who's the best in this network and who's the best in that network, not who is the best. And I think that is really absolutely ridiculous and unconscionable, quite frankly. So I just thank you for letting me say that. I know you all have very specific issues too, and I appreciate all of them. But again, just hope your loved ones aren't on the wrong side of the fence if they get particularly sick. Thank you.
Does anybody else have any questions? Or?
I try not to speak at these places, but then if the subject comes up, I can't help but open up my mouth. Just a kudo to Upper St. Clair. My 4 daughters came to this world at Upper St. Clair, and my wife did have her hip replacement at Upper St. Clair, and it's a very excellent hospital. The problem shouldn't be trying to figure out what we should do in retirement and things like that, and which one costs a little bit more money or which one costs a little bit less money. People our age shouldn't be trying to figure out on an annual basis what insurance should use, what this should we do, what should that we do. You know, we should be trying to enjoy life a little bit more. The shame of it all is, as I see it, is that UPMC, as the non-profit, it's ridiculous to be called a non-profit that is building facilities in Europe, in Israel, and all over the world, but and a couple miles from Jefferson locally and everything else, so that they can try and wipe out another facility. And they're a non-profit. They could care less if this room was full of people like us and we were going out the front door. They could care less what people like us are saying, because all they want to do is wipe somebody out so we can have to go to them. The people that need to speak up are our politicians. Like you said, where's our governor, where are our House representatives or Senate people? Where's the mayor of Pittsburgh? Where's Fitzgerald at? If it wasn't for Chelsea Wagner starting things up a little bit a few months ago, and Shapiro, nobody would be saying boo about any of these things. And that's a shame. This is almost as bad. Non-profit. Oh, well, gee, that would be like Salvation Army and Red Cross not doing things for you because, oh, hey, your house burned down and I'm with the Red Cross. I was going to help you, but I saw that you gave some money to Salvation Army last year, so we're not going to do anything for you. That's the same thing. Salvation Army, Red Cross, non-profits. They are non-profits. And let's either call it like it is, either make UPMC stick to being a non-profit, where the CEO's not making $9 million a year, and and the board of directors don't say boo, because UPMC lets whatever companies they run, like Hannah, or they probably do all their real estate through Hannah. Hey, I'm not going to open up my mouth. And all the other board of directors, they just sit there and let the guy make his $9 million and make all these other people try and figure out to switch. It's ridiculous. I don't have a problem so far. I do have Blue Cross PPO. And I've not had a problem over the years. Back about 20 years ago, I had quadruple bypass, and back in the day, I could go to UPMC Presby and have the doctors tell me, hey, you better have a quadruple bypass, we'll better operate on you tomorrow, otherwise you can go home and have a heart attack and die. Fine. They didn't say, well, you have to go to AHN because we're not going to take care of you, you don't have it. It's ridiculous. Our politicians have to do more. UPMC could care less we could have 2,000, 10,000 people here. They could care less. It's the politicians going to count. It's the mayor, the governor, and everybody else. They're the people who got to do something about this. Thank you.
Well, that's why I have in the back of the room the handout with all your elected officials to call. And there is this statute for the Public Charity Act, and so something needs to change. I mean, it's you're right. UPMC is acting like a for-profit organization, institution, but they are, they say they're a charity. And so they enjoy all the benefits of a charity. But it's a law that needs to change. And I think Josh Shapiro was absolutely right to take them to court and to challenge them because, I don't think they pass the muster of being a charity. And it's terrible. They've used fear and intimidation to drum up more business. They waited to almost a deadline to frighten people with, children. I mean, if I have small grandchildren. I would like to know if they were sick, they would be able to go to Children's Hospital. And last night, the county executive gave his quarterly address, whether, he said that he and Mayor Peduto were working behind the scenes and that they were successful in getting health care available to the specialty hospitals, Children and Western Psych and Hillman. So do you take the man at his word? I'm just relaying what he said last night, that they were working behind the scenes. But I did want to ask Bill, and when they say the specialty hospitals are extended, I think they said 2021 or 2022. Going to Children's or Hillman, they've kind of eased up on that. But there's no guarantee beyond 2021. Is that correct?
And there's no guarantee that the promise that you can go to Hillman now with a Highmark card is not going to be taken back at some point in time, or that a person with a Highmark Freedom Blue PPO or some employer-provided PPO product won't be turned away a year from now. So, and again, one of the things I said at the beginning, this is a symptom. This is not the thing. This is part of a bigger thing. And that bigger thing is investing in private enterprise. And whether they call themselves nonprofit, whether they call themselves what they are, investing in entities that are looking at the well-being of their own entity form. Saying, look, the first thing is to protect ourselves. There's nothing wrong with that, but understand what that is. Understand that when it comes down to, are we for the community or are we for our bottom line? Are we for the community or are we for the continuation of our entity in a powerful, thriving way? We're going to choose the entity first. And it's the nature of the beast to say, look, this is why we were created. We were created to maximize the extent of our vision, to fulfill the profits that we can. And just because we're a nonprofit doesn't mean we can't bring in money. We just don't show a profit at the end of the year. We say we're this to benefit, but that's the point. We want to benefit as much as possible. And we embrace that, or at least we acquiesce to it. And part of the responsibility is ours. We're angry now because it's very immediate. We should have been angry, really angry 5 years ago. We should have been angry even before that. We should have been angry when we realized that a system that we had given our trust and really believed that they were there for the well-being of the community was essentially for the well-being of themselves. And it's okay. There's an old parable. Once upon a time, a frog's sitting on the bank of a river, sunning himself. And up comes a scorpion and says, hey, would you let me jump on your back and take me across the stream? There's something over there I really want to get to. And the frog said, whoa, you're a scorpion. You're going to sting me. I said, no, I'm not. It's like, look, there's something really, really beneficial. It's going to help you. It's going to help me. Take me over, and I'll share it with you. I'll show you what really good is. Yeah, but you're going to sting me. Look, if you're taking me across on the stream and I sting you, you're going to die and I'm going to drown. It's in our interest to work together for the well-being of each other. Come on. And so the frog, well, you put it that way. And so he lets the scorpion get on his back. They go into the stream and they start swimming across the stream. And halfway across the stream, the scorpion stings the frog. As the frog's losing control of his legs, as he's slipping under the water, he looks at the scorpion and said, I don't get it. It's like, you're going to die. I'm going to die. This is no good for anybody. You promised you wouldn't do this. Why? And the scorpion looks at the frog and says, because I'm a scorpion. It's in the DNA of the entities to be what they are. And for us to hope they change, for us to hope they do the right thing, is sometimes shame on us. Understand the nature. And don't be surprised when that nature runs contrary to what we want. And then we ask, please God, let somebody come and save us from that. We have to understand the nature of what we're working with. We have to understand the nature of what it can be down the road when we most desperately want it to be in our favor and it doesn't work out. And ask ourselves, is that where we want the direction of our healthcare to go? In the hands of enterprises that are about, built into their own DNA, looking out for their own interests. Now, there's not a right or wrong answer. There's simply an understanding that when we decide things, it's not just for the immediacy, and it's not just, oh, Lord, who's going to help me right now? It's, what are we doing that's going to have an effect down the road, a long time down the road? We should have seen this coming years ago, decades ago, and we didn't. And we hope that it would all work out, but it hasn't. And now look at us now. If nothing else, we learn from this. Understand, this is the nature of things to come. Fool me once, don't get fooled again.
Bill, you can comment after I make my comment here on what you said. I think we should have seen it coming years ago when hospitals and health plans got together in the same entity. To me, that's when the problem really started. If UPMC were just a health system, you wouldn't have this problem because they did serve the community. If Allegheny Health Network, well, I should say Allegheny General Hospital System is West Penn Allegheny, they all had their financial problems, but hospitals and physicians and nurses, as you all know, and Sue knows, don't go to work every day seeing what they can wreak out of the system, and they're trying to help the community, and that's true of all the hospitals in this area. I don't even fault the doctors at Hillman or the doctors at Allegheny General or anybody. They want to do what's right for people. But once you get into the insurance business, it changes it, because now you want to direct people, and you understand this totally. It's called tiering and steering. So they could even say, and this is what I worry about in the future, and I'm sure you know this, even if you're in the network they can say to you, well, we'll sell you this insurance and you can go anywhere you want to go. But if you go to hospital A, it costs you a $10 copay. If you go to hospital B, it's a $1,000 copay. But they're in our network. We sell everything in our network. That's tiering and steering. You get people to just choose, as we talked about buying a health insurance, you get them to choose where they want to go based on how much they have to pay out of their pocket. That's not really a good system. And you do that when you get, I'll use the old term, get in cahoots with the hospitals. When the insurance companies and the hospitals get together and they're the same entity, that's a problem. United doesn't have that right now. Optum they're getting Optum and they're trying to get into the delivery business. But why are they doing that? Because they can consolidate and make you go where they want you to go. They can, Aetna and CVS, right? They can say, you go to CVS for all your prescriptions if you have Aetna, and then while we're there, we have a nurse practitioner that can see you for your sore toe, and we'll take care of some things. Once the insurance companies get in the delivery business, this is the kind of problems you get. You don't get it from other hospitals that are independent that aren't in the insurance business, but once they have the same goal, which is to maximize profit and to maximize use, get as many people through the doors as they can, get as many people into their doctor's offices as they can, that all brings back to the same thing. They want to keep bringing you into their system. So I think that's where the problem really started many, many years ago when we allowed this to happen. No, we allowed it. And
But we
the market-
acquiesced. We knew.
The market
We saw
allowed it to happen. Yeah, I agree. It's too late to get upset now.
What Dr. Allen's talking about is often referred to as an integrated health network system. Integrated in the sense that it encompasses, think of UPMC and the multiple hospitals, multiple care services, that seeks to bring logic and structure in a system. But take it one step further, and this is where the dark side comes. Let's also take control of the insurance that creates the networks within ourselves. We are not just a care provider, we're also an insurance company. We're not just an insurance company, we're a healthcare system. You know which is which. Look, here's a model. Once upon a time, and I'm going to assign to every doctor under the sun in every hospital the altruism of their primary goal, their vision of their profession is to save lives, keep people healthy, prolong good health and life as long as possible. But it comes up against the conflict of how are we going to pay for that? Now, way back many, many long times ago, it was about how are you going to pay for it? I want to keep you alive, I want to keep you healthy, do you have the money? And then we got the idea, let's bring an intermediary, let's bring insurance in. For the cost of a premium, they will stand in our place. But in that case, we have this conflict still of, I want to make you healthy, but how are we going to come up with the money? And I want to make profit on this, thus minimizing your utilization, or at least making it more efficient, and minimizing the stuff that eats into my profit margin. And when it was like this, at least it was somewhat of a fair fight. Now it's like this. When healthcare systems integrate with insurance, whether it was the insurance first or the healthcare system, you have the likely possibility it is an insurance side of this equation that dictates to the doctors and the care providers, this is what you will provide, this is how you'll provide, this is when you stop providing. Get that person out of our ICU unit, it costs too much. Get that person out of our hospital and send them to a skilled nursing. Get that person out of the skilled nursing and send them to a long-term care facility. For their best interest? Well, for our best interest, and we hope those best interests coincide, but do they often? We always ask ourselves now a question, am I being moved somewhere? Am I being given something? Am I being treated some way? Because the doctor truly believes this is what is the most beneficial, or is it because an insurance entity is overriding that doc and saying, here's what you need to do if you want to keep your position here? And that should be obscene as well.
Thank you. I agree.
I have a neighbor who just 2 weeks ago passed away, who had been not doing well, he was 80 years old, but in like what you just tell us, he was in the hospital at a UPMC hospital, I don't remember which one, but he was told that he had to go to a ManorCare that day. Had to go. He was on all kinds of life support. He had to go to ManorCare that day. the next day he passed away.
And the amazing,
Because less expensive, I'm sure.
and the amazing thing is, there were ways he could have stopped that process if he had known. We are often contacted by families and individuals to say, look, we just found out Nana's going to be discharged to a place that we don't think is in her best interest. Is there a way we can stop it? And I said, yeah. Wait till the discharging person comes up and look her square in the eye and say, I'm appealing the discharge. Ideally, make her wait till about 4 o'clock before they wheel the wheelchair and then say, oh no, I'm not going to sign these. I'm appealing the discharge. Now, that's got to go through an appeal process that may buy you a few extra days and may get you a chance to catch your second win. Now, I'm not trying to beat up on any hospital, but I just love it when a family says, wait a minute, so we can stop this? Yeah, I can't promise for how long, but try to stretch it out a little bit longer. You know, ask if you can wait for the discharge till the afternoon when the family can come in. See if you can get lunch out of the deal as well. And then when they finally are ready, can you sign these, please? Can you sign these papers? We'd like to get you out of here. Oh, really? That's right. It's after 4 o'clock. Oh, by the way, I'm appealing this discharge. And just watch them get.
But people have all these things on their mind, and they don't necessarily think of.
No, because they don't know. They don't know what options they've got.
So Doctor, let me ask you a question. Upper St. Clair.
St. Clair.
St. Clair.
Yeah, right.
They accept UPMC and Highmark, and either one of them use your hospital. Is there not some concern from the St. Clair Hospital people, the staff, that says, hey, one of these days, I'm expecting that UPMC is going to say, hey, you have UPMC coverage, you can't go to St. Clair Hospital anymore, you have to go to our hospital. And Highmark going to say the same thing, you have to go to AHN, you can't go to St. Clair Hospital anymore, you have to go to our hospital.
You're asking a great question.
The main one saying, nobody can go to St. Clair Hospital.
It's an excellent.
Must be a concern of yours.
No, not a concern, but it's a great question. It's not a major concern of ours. But do we think about it? Of course. But our goal has been all along, and I tried to emphasize this in the beginning with what we've accomplished. Mr. Collins, who's our president, I think the world of him. I think he's a great strategist. He understands the healthcare system very well. He came in 2006. It's hard to believe he's been there that long. But Mr. Collins' opinion when he came to St. Clair and told us, I've served under 2 presidents, that the way we avoid that particular problem is we provide extremely high quality health care and you get excellent patient satisfaction, and the people won't allow the insurer to stop coming to St. Clair. And that's been his theory all along. And I didn't show you some slides I brought, but St. Clair, when we do surveys of the South Hills, and you ask people, which hospital do you want in your network, which is the key, right? In the network is what you're asking. St. Clair gets like 85% of the people in this area, and there's a large area, about 500,000 people here, want St. Clair Hospital in their network. Higher than any other hospital. That's how we will stay there, because they won't be able to exclude you. They've tried on a couple of occasions over the years to have a product which we aren't allowed to participate. Not that we wouldn't participate, but they don't want to offer it to us. Just like you're saying, let's have a product that brings everybody into our system. And they couldn't sell it in the South Hills. It's just people wouldn't buy it because they said, if St. Clair's not in there, I don't want that product. And that's what saved St. Clair. High quality and good patient satisfaction.
That anybody was always going to be able to go to the Hillman Cancers and to Children's Hospital and everything else. And yes, they just changed that recently, but that's only short term too. So.
Well, we don't know. We hope it's not short term, right? Let's hope that this continues it for as we say, for everyone in this area, that continues, because you want to have access. We don't need 2 children's hospitals in Pittsburgh. It's not large enough a city for that, and it just spreads everything too thinly. You just don't want to do that. We want to have one area that provides very high quality for everyone. And I'm more optimistic. I think that they will get this worked out for those specialty hospitals. I'd like to see them get everything worked out.
Well, and that's why you mentioned that, gee, how come we waited so long before we had 5 years or something like that? Because most of us thought this is going to get worked out. This is just a ploy by Romoff and the UPMC to get people to switch over to the UPMC coverage. And at the end of it, they're gonna say, oh, okay, it's all okay, and then they'll be clapping their hands and say, yeah, but look at how many people we had to switch from Highmark coverage to UPMC coverage. We really won in the long term. And that's why most people thought, hey, the government's never gonna let this happen because they're nonprofits. Yeah, they're talking a lot, but when it comes to the end, it's not gonna happen. Well, okay, it's almost here.
Excuse me, there's a gentleman with a question. Do you mind coming to the microphone because we're audio taping, videotaping, and I want the people watching to hear the question as well as the answer.
Who's going to start to put controls on the pharmaceuticals for pricing?
Good question. And boy, that's a whole another night. Here, let me give you one metric. Less than 20 years ago, the average cost share for an individual on insulin was about $20 a month. That's what it cost an individual to access insulin. Right now, probably it's more like a couple $100s a month. And I picked that because that's an essential product. You might be able to go with dry eyes. You might be able to offset some of the other conditions. But I dare you to try to stay off of your insulin for very long and thrive or survive. And there are 3 companies that essentially dominate that. And those 3 companies find that the process of manufacturing and making the product available is far less in cost. I don't know why they do what they do, but I know that individuals that have to take significant quantities of insulin on a regular basis, and we're not even talking about the diagnostic process, we're not talking about the delivery process, we're just talking about the drug itself, has become so expensive that it's become inaccessible for individuals. And I'm not talking about, those type B people, they deserve it. How about type A? How about people that are born that way? How about people whose pancreas just don't work no more? What do we tell the kids? What do we tell the parents of the kids that now have to scrape together hundreds, thousands of dollars? The more frequent you use, the more it costs. What do we tell those people? That we have a nation that does not value, that we allow individuals to go without something as essential as that because we don't want to interfere with the private enterprise and the profit margin that those individuals are doing. We choose not to do things for lots of reasons. It becomes politically inexpedient to do things. And maybe this is one of, again, those wake-up calls. It's like, don't count on the Deus Ex Machina to come in and say, there, we're okay. It's like, we are the entity that is going to do something because we choose to. And you want to see problems? This pales by comparison to what it's going to look like as the escalating cost of drugs take some of the most incredible developments in medical. And once upon a time, we relied on hospitals. We relied on outpatient services. We rely on medicine. We rely on prescription medicine to do those things, to forgive those sins of our youth, to keep us healthy longer. People, when we were kids, used to imagine what someone in their 60s and 70s was like. They were old and wrinkly. It's because probably they were. We're those people now. And we don't feel that way, or look that way, or act that way. And to a large degree, you can thank the pharmacological revolutions, the breakthroughs that keep us alive longer and better, but at a price. And if you ain't got that price, you don't get that quality. And no matter what you can do to save their lives, no matter what your facility can do, there ultimately comes at some point this need to say, there's going to be drugs you take. I'll give you an example. If I'm lucky enough to be able to have one of my organs replaced, in the process of prepping and the extent beyond that, I'm going to be taking an anti-rejection drug for the rest of my life. And I better hope to God that I can afford it. And we are regularly confronted with facilities, transplant liaison offices that contact us from those hospitals and say, look, before we allow this person to be on the transplant list, we need some assurance that this person will be able to pay for the drugs they're going to have to take for the rest of their life. We're not going to waste an organ. We're not going to waste a process. And to imagine that you cannot have access to a thing which is going to be the miracle that saves your life because you can't afford. And it is so accessible. And it is so possible. And yet we can't do it. And the retort might be, hey, you know, no one promised that everybody can have access. No one promised everybody a car or a house or something like that. And we have to ask ourselves, as a community and as a nation, is healthcare about a guarantee or is it about nothing more than an opportunity? If you did well, if you worked hard, if you saved your money, you get to have access to good healthcare. If not, too bad. And the irony is, even for people that thought they were well off, thought they were doing well, thought they had planned well, the cost of the meds, specifically the cost of the meds, have offset any plans they thought, any vision they had of what the rest of their life was going to look like. Talk about hospitals and doctors. Forget about that. Talk about how am I going to get my meds and how am I going to pay for my meds. And what are we going to do about it? And something that if we don't do something about it, and do something about it soon, we're going to find that all the good work that gets done is for naught because we can't maintain our health in a pharmacological way. You raised a good point.
Is the donut hole ever going to go away?
If we wanted to.
Can you repeat the question, Bill, please?
Okay, so you don't have to come on up. No, stay put. I'll do the question. The question was, will the donut hole ever go away? Well, it depends on what Duncan wants to do about it. The donut hole is... Oh, yeah, yeah.
Tell me what the donut hole is.
Literally,
Thank you,
I promise. The donut hole is not something with frosting and glaze on it. The donut hole is a point in your coverage under Medicare, under Part D of Medicare, D for drugs, in which your purchase of drugs has exceeded a certain amount, and the insurance, the Part D coverage, drops off and says, you've cost us enough, we're not going to cover you from this point on. It's a donut hole because once you've spent out of your pocket a certain amount, they're back online for coverage purposes. So you're going along with coverage, oops, you reached your coverage limit. Now you're not covered by the insurance company until you bought yourself out by spending out of your own pocket a certain amount, and there you are. Let me give you an example that might drive it home better. I'm in Medicare. I only take one drug, but it's a doozy. That drug costs $2,000 real, but I got a decent plan. I only have to pay $200 a month to get it. Now, I show up in January at the pharmacy and say, here's my money. And I show up in February and I say, here's my money. And the pharmacist says, when you show up again, you better bring more than a couple $100s. And I say, why? Because your expenditures have now exceeded the limits. You have spent more money in the purchase of your drugs. And I say, what's the limit? $4,000. Well, no, I've only spent $400. It's like, no, it's not what you spent. It's what you and the insurance company spent. You spent, between you and their money, $4,000 now. Well, what's going to happen? They're off the hook. They're not going to cover the cost of your drugs at all until you buy yourself out of the hole with your own money. Well, how much is that? $5,000. Well, okay, so another $1,000. No. What gets you in the hole is what you and the insurance company spent on your drugs. What gets you out of the hole is just what you've spent. So you spent $400. We'll see you back when you spend another $4,600. Once you get on the other side of the hole, you're in what's called catastrophic coverage. The insurance company's back on the hook to cover about 95% of the cost of your drugs. But listen up. First of all, I'm taking an expensive drug. I'm planning on getting hit with at least $5,000 to get myself onto the catastrophic end. But you know what? I'm still going to be spending 5% of the cost of that drug, and change that from $2,000 to $20,000. Yeah, they exist. Hell, I'm in the donut hole and out of the donut hole in the same month on a drug like that, but I'm still going to spend 5% of my money. Now, there's some good news, there's some relief. Currently, and you can thank, ironically, the Affordable Care Act, better known as Obamacare, for delivering this next thing. One of the aspects of the Affordable Care Act was there would be help for individuals that were in the donut. Not as perfect as bringing them back to what it was when they were insured, but at least a significant part of that cost that would have been borne exclusively on their shoulders till they met that $5,000 requirement is helped by the federal government. But you know what? That could go away too. So the question is, will the donut hole go away? If we want it to, it will. If we will it to go away, it will. This was not something that we discovered. It's like, oh my gosh, look at this growth on the Medicare system. How do we get rid of it? It was a choice that was made when they introduced the Part D process back in 2003. That came into effect in 2007. We just said, you know, this is what it's going to be. And, unfortunately, we don't seem to want to do much about it. We just kind of acquiesce, like we just keep acquiescing to stuff. We said this is so important that we don't hit the donut. No, how about this? If this is so important that we're not spending such a huge portion of our resources, our income, on the cost of drugs, when in other countries, like maybe to the north of us, there are restrictions and limitations that guarantee the cost of those drugs will never reach a point where individuals can't afford them. This is a choice we can make if we want this to be made, and we make it through the government and not hoping that private enterprise cuts us a break. Well, it's up to you. The question, or what was posed is, well, that sounds like socialized medicine. Look, anytime the government is involved in something, it's a form of socialized something. And the question we ask ourselves is, do we want absolute, unrestricted utilization of a system that is manned exclusively by private enterprise or under the guise of nonprofit, or do we want and demand that government involve itself for the good of the individuals? There's no answer to that. There is how you feel about it and how you act about it. And isn't it ironic for those individuals say, God damn it, I don't want socialized medicine, except won't the governor do something about this? Won't the senators and reps, won't our government come in to protect us? That's socialized. It is relying on the government to do something because we can't do it ourselves. Now, we can either say we don't want it, but then we're at the mercy of the forces in a real Hobbesian sort of way. Or we say, no, there is a reason government exists. This may very well be one of those reasons. Wherever you fall on this, it's up to you. And there's no right or wrong answer. There's simply, what do you want, and are you prepared to pay the consequences for that thing that you want?
Dr. Euston, did you want to say anything?
No, I just want to thank everyone for coming and thank Ms. Means for sponsoring it for us. Certainly, we'd be available afterwards if you want to come up and ask any questions privately. I'd be glad to answer them for you. I would just appreciate the opportunity to be able to let you know that our hospital in your community is here and accepts all insurances, and we'll continue to do so in the future. So, thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome. And Bill, did you want to say anything?
No, I just appreciate all you guys coming out here and sitting through 2 hours of this. Congratulations to you. Give yourself a pat on the back and an applause. You deserve it.
I want to thank again Dr. Yeasted and Bill McKendry for coming here, to giving their time to be so helpful. And I mean, they could have spent their time otherwise, but they were here to help. And I'm just very appreciative of the time. And I'm here for you if there's, you know, and if you have other questions, please approach me. I'm here to help you. Hopefully tonight gave you information, and the information will help you on your journey. Thank you very much.